visible and audible?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. Hello, I am Ranjana. I am from Chennai and I study in CEPT University and I'm currently in my fourth year and I just got done with my internship. So I think today's discussion is about my last semester project, which was my sixth semester. Um, and I would love it if it were more of an interactive session where you guys can ask me anything. And yeah, I can share some of the work from my project. Okay. Should I start?
Yeah, definitely. Go ahead.
Okay. So I'll just quickly discuss what I did last semester. So our studio, we documented a site, an existing building in Ahmedabad. It's called the Gujarat United School of Theology. And so as you can see in this model, the existing building had two wings of dorms and one wing with a chapel, a library, and a storeroom. So what we did was, like there were 11 people in our studio, and each of us took a part of that site, and we were given that to create an intervention on top of what was already existing. So we got different programs like library, a performance room, uh, dorm, exhibition space, and so much more related to the current program. So the program I got was a music room, and we were just let free and we started conceptualizing through models. So these are some of my initial. So what we did was the existing site was supposed to be a part of our design. So we just started responding to what was already existing. We had a lot of discussions with our faculty and we just started slowly developing on what was already there, cues from the program, cues from the site, and also from, as you can see in this, all of us had to coordinate with the person who's next to us based on the program. So we used to have discussions and like we just used to discuss ki how we can respond with each other's design. So it started from very basic model making, like it started from a 200 scale. Then we slowly started scaling up as the program developed into a 100 scale. And then the final resolution was in model till a 50 scale. So these are the like progress you can see in model making. And slowly the design and the form started to evolve and we had a certain amount of resolution. And there were a lot of drawings also, like as a mode of exploring the design. So primarily in my case, the section was more of a tool for me to explore the spatial nature because it was a music room and the acoustics, the how the space responds, and it's actually a very functional program because whatever the activity that has to be done in the space has to be accommodated by the design. So there was a lot of restrictions and like a lot of rules that came along with like the framework of the studio itself. So that actually helped us to go in a certain way and like the more the limitation, the more like resolved and the more clearer we were about design decisions. So it slowly developed and so there was a lot of referencing involved. So music rooms. So music room is a very specific program because in churches they just have a dedicated choir room where they have their practices. So I had to branch out a bit and look at orchestras and theaters and performance spaces and also like smaller practice spaces. So there was a lot of referencing done from books, from architects, from like Instagram, a lot of recent works. So we used to like quickly discuss, study these, make a few sketches, understand how things are like being decided. And then yeah, so these were my plan sketches about how one enters the existing and slowly they branch out into the space and how the movement works and how the orientation and the space in 3D can be coordinated in a way that, the there is it's not just a functional space, it also has a certain character to it. And these are my final set of drawings. So in the studio, like one of the main things that was stressed on was that, like, you work with your hand, and whatever you want to explore, it was done through either hand sketching or hand drafting or model making. You see some of my like first few models, they were quite untidy, I would say, but it was important to kind of do that in an intuitional way, and you know keep correcting things, keep putting tracings on top and draw over things. Even in the final set, there was just a single sheet, and we just used our previous, like the latest drawings that we had, like already hand drafted, and whatever details and whatever resolution has to be done directly on that paper. And it was a very patient process of working with the hand. But yeah, so this is the final model of the design. It's a music room and a smaller practice space, so hence the roof. And the idea and the expression was that the space grows from the ground. So if you see the existing building, there is a pitched roof. And so the idea was that once you enter that space, that roof itself extends. So in the section, when you move here, the space kind of expands and erupts into a tall volume. That was the idea. So that expression and that character was the basis for all of the design decisions taken in plan, in section, in details, in how things are expressed, in door windows, in material selection, in aesthetic, everything. So that primary idea was kept, and then added things like, how to make this more functional, how would the people of the like existing structure use this space. But yeah, so, and this was the final sheet that I put together. Yeah, and these are some pictures that I would like to share from the studio experience. Like, this was the space I used to work in. So we have tack boards that we can use to put up references, process everything. So in the morning you would come and everything is in front of you, and you sit and work in your own space. And yeah, so it was nice to kind of have everything around you, so that no matter how far you go in the design process, you always can look back to the reference you were looking at a week ago, and you can keep applying that in your design. So that was a very nice thing to have. And I would say the references and the having everything around you, that really makes you like be in touch with what you're trying to achieve in the final output. But it was a very gradual process, that even in the final sheet, as I was drafting, there would always be discussions, corrections. Even once you inked it, you go back and you think, are we sure about this detail? Are we sure about this using these kind of panels for the roofing? So a lot of things were gradual, and used to go in circles. But that is part of the learning process. I would say that keep like questioning everything, keep so that your arguments become stronger as you keep, questioning the same decisions. But yeah, so there's no final design as such. Like, this was the most resolution I was able to achieve in those 4 months. But yeah, so that is my project, and I would love to discuss anything that you guys want to in particular.
Okay, thanks a lot for sharing. This was really insightful. Honestly, like I personally love to see the entire thought process that went into uh such a work. So thanks a lot for that. Now if anyone has any questions, they can either ask or like even put it in the chat.
Guys, please feel free to ask question, comments, or any reviews you want to share. It's a good opportunity.
Yeah, and I'm just a student, and even I don't know what I'm doing. So this can just be an open discussion.
Hi. I wanted to ask, when you first started out with the project, what was your like, what were the problems that you encountered while having to, find everything, source all the information and everything? What are some problems that you encountered, and how did you solve them?
Okay, so in my specific case, so the issue was the references that I was looking at that point of time. So if you know, this area is actually a really small. We were given very small spaces to design on. So our areas were like very bare minimum. It was almost, I think, 80 square meters, if I'm not wrong. So it was a very small space. And one big challenge that comes with this is designing as a part of an existing program, right? So there was always a lot of negotiation with our faculty. Like, so you couldn't break the whole existing space. So it was not like a normal project that I had done before, or something that you just remove the existing and then you just build what you want and you shape the existing according to your will. No. So it was more like you have to take from what is already there, and we were only allowed to break 30% of the existing walls, which was very little because we needed a lot of space for the program. And in this specific case, a music room, because of your seating and because of your stage, you need a large area. So, and we were not allowed to build on one level. So a lot of uh, like loopholes were found to not like damage the existing, like not take away from what is there, and just try to just use those limitations as opportunities to think in a different way. Because when we look at references, we always have those two or three things that we've already seen, and we think that that is the norm. So, for example, a music room, like what I had seen are like big auditoriums and orchestra. So I had this notion in my head that the seating is supposed to be in this way, or the entrance is supposed to be in a particular way. But this kind of a limitation, and the fact that I couldn't break some of the main walls when you were entering, so like a lot of navigating through that had to be done. So if you see in plan, this is the plan, and if you see that this part was actually very restricting as an entrance, because you essentially I wanted at least the space to branch out, but there was this wall in between. But then we didn't let that, you know stop what was happening because of the existing, and we just built an additional layer of like a faceted structure, which would then become an interesting space even programmatically. For example, here it became a foyer that has all those notices. And when you go to theaters or like performance spaces, they have these boards, right, with all those posters, kiosks, information booths. So like that became into that. And who's to say that it can't be in the entrance? Why can't it be part of your movement and your journey? So that's what ended up happening in this case. So I would say that one of the most important things to remember is that just because the references that we look at are in a certain type of way doesn't mean that our design also has to do that. So you can always, play around, and as long as the logic is retained, you, the norm and the physically what has to be built can always change. I don't know if this answered your question, but yeah, that was personally what I struggled with the most initially.
That was actually, that did answer my question. That was a good answer. Like to know what you personally felt and changed. And the thing that you said about not having to follow the norms, that, well, it's like हमारा conditioning हो जाता है to follow a certain type of way, and to branch out from that is initially very hard. But I understand that you did, and it's a very great design. I really like your project.
Thank you so much. And like one more thing I would like to add is that when you do referencing, it's very difficult because once you see something that resonates with you and your project and what you're trying to achieve, sometimes we get stuck on that, and it is very hard to, and when you're drawing and when you're designing, once that gets into your head, it's hard to remove that. And sometimes people take references too seriously and too literally, and I think that happens to everyone because once you see something you think, okay, that is how it's done. So for that you can do two things. One thing is you look at a lot of references, and then instead of taking physically what is there in the reference, you see what is common in everything, and then you try to use the gist of the logic. And another thing is that references can come from anywhere. Like I a lot of things that actually ended up helping me in my project were not the Arcadeli projects that I had pinned. It was more like experiences from reality, where like I remembered like a certain place that I had been to, and I would enter in a certain way and the space would make me feel this way. So that you can draw from any of those experiences, and in fact like real life experiences can be much more helpful. And because